Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. This is a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist. I've been in private practice forever and have treated a whole bunch of people with ADHD at all, from their kids to the people themselves, to the adults, and a lot of what I call late diagnosed, which is pretty much anybody who made it to about 30 without being diagnosed. Um, and I've decided to do I think it'll be 5 parts. I may add another one talking about late diagnosed people, because those are the folks that used to really get to me emotionally. I would see somebody, they were finally decided that there was something going on in their lives other than just that they're lazy or whatever, and so they want to get a good look at them. And when I would do the feedback session, which is when I tell them what we found, what the diagnosis was, and treatment recommendations, and so on, they would typically react one of three ways. Some would be just relieved. Oh, thank God. I knew there was something wrong, but boy, this is great. Because, ADHD is one of the most treatable diagnoses in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. That's what mental health people use to make diagnoses. Anyway, okay, so relief, which was not as frequent as I would have liked. Anger at all the people who just hadn't bothered to get any evaluation done or done anything but treat what they were going through as a behavior problem. And, so they're angry at mom and or dad, mostly dad, frankly, and all the schools and school teachers that, gave them a hard time, told them they were lazy, and so on. And then the last one group or reaction was depression. It's just, oh my God, I wasted so much time. If I'd only known, I could have, da 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 da. And they're reviewing all the bad things that have happened to them being undiagnosed ADHDers. I say almost every time, an average ADHDer gets 70 critical comments a day when they're a kid. I don't know if it gets any less as an adult because we don't have that information, but it's 70 a day for a kid. Think about what that does to your self-esteem. Think about how that affects you, or would affect you if you went through it. The thing I want to really talk about today is self-image. And, self-image is, all of us have one. It's the little model of ourselves that we keep in our brain, and that says, what kind of a guy we are. Well, in my case, a guy I am, and whether I'm kind or angry or whatever, if I feel good about myself, those sorts of things. Well, if you're getting 70 critical comments a day and you don't know what's going on, you don't know why, you don't know that there's a perfectly logical reason for this behavior that's got more to do with your lack of self-control and willpower. It's a neurological condition. It's not a behavior problem. It's not because you're such a rebellious so-and-so. Although frequently ADHDers become rebellious, but it depends on the treatment that they get. Okay, so I quote the title of this book regularly, and I always forget. Kelly was one of the authors, and the other, anyway, but it's, You Mean I'm Not Lazy, Crazy, or Stupid. It was written quite a while ago, but it's about what happens. What happens is when people are diagnosed late with ADHD, that there's this relief. Oh my God, thank you. Now I know what's going on. Now I can do something about it. But for many people, it is not that simple. They go through life thinking well, first of all, they think they're not very smart. And a lot of them carry it to the extreme that they think they maybe are dyslexic. They can't read very well. Well, it's hard to finish a book if you can't concentrate for more than 5 or 10 minutes. So that's well, it happens, of course, but it's not an of course. Or they think that they're lazy. Maybe I just because we know ADHD is a lousy name for what we're talking about. If anything, these folks have too much attention. But they can't control what they're paying attention to. It's whatever's most interesting is what they're paying attention to. So you want to prove that, put a kid with ADHD in the classroom next to the window. He'll be gone in a heartbeat. It's just the way it goes. But they start thinking that why can't I do everything everybody else does? I'm either lazy or I'm stupid or maybe I've got a learning disability. Maybe I'm just not motivated. Maybe I could, if they were really interested, they can go with it. Of course, the other thing about growing up with ADHD in our current society is that not a whole heck of a lot of anything in our society is designed for ADHDers. I mean, schools certainly aren't. You have the whole idea that you're going to take a kid with ADHD who's not in any treatment and make him sit still for 6 hours, something like that, and sit quietly, not run and jump or yell and scream or anything like that. And then he's going to go home and he's going to do 2 hours of homework, and then he's going to be ready to come back the next day and do it again. It's very hard for these kiddos because our educational system is not designed for anybody who's neurodivergent, anybody who can't pay attention for extended periods of time, anybody who can't sit for extended periods of time, and anybody being told what they're ordered to do. They don't do that very well, but that's the way our system is set up. There are other ways of teaching that require more, learning by projects. Great idea. Montessori, great idea. But schools are not taught that way, and public schools are not taught that way. And I don't know if the problem is that we got school systems that are following directions that are given to them by state legislatures, which are composed of lawyers, who of course know something about everything, but are not really educational theorists. So you've got a problem there, and so nobody else will tell them for some reason. In this day and age, it's less understandable that people would not be thinking about getting an evaluation for their child. First of all, the teachers are, oh my God, you tell them you can help control an ADHD kid in their classroom, they're all for it. Thank you very much, sir. Yes. The problems you have many times are that, the teachers will, I basically got referrals from teachers all the darn time, and teachers aren't supposed to be doing that. That's not their job, but they should be telling the parents that we think that he might benefit from being treated. Back in my day, we didn't have ADHD. There was no such thing. When my kids were young, there also was no ADHD. It was not in the book. It was not in the diagnostic statistical manual. Nowadays, we're a little more sensitive to it, but you still run into people who don't believe in it, or I'm not going to put my kid on medication, or other ways that don't help your kid. It's trying to get a kid who really, and ADHD is not all one thing. Like, everybody's exactly the same. There are different levels. Some are just barely ADHD, and they can get away with learning some compensatory strategies and that sort of stuff. But some kids are so wired that they absolutely need to be on some kind of medication. And, with the research and stuff that's being done, there are now non-stimulant medications that are pretty good with ADHD. They aren't quite as effective as the stimulants, but hey, take what we can get, and some parents are just scared to death of stimulants. Oh, it's a gateway drug. He's going to turn into a drug addict. He'll be addicted. Funny thing about that is that ADHD kids who are on stimulant medications are rarely abusers. Kids who have ADHD and aren't treated medically, those are the kids that become drug addicts and drug abusers, shall we say. Let's not go all the way to addicts right away. But that's the way it goes. And so they start thinking, and they start being treated like they're bad people in some way or other. They're bad because they're lazy and don't care, or they're bad people because they don't do what they're supposed to do, like get their homework done on time and hand it in, and not act out in class, and so on. And so you get a picture of yourself as somebody who breaks the rules all the time. You're just not a good guy, and your teacher would really just assume you weren't there. So the other thing is that a lot of times when people don't know what's going on with themselves, they want to feel better. And sometimes this leads to some dangerous experimentation. They start looking at different substances and different, chemicals that they, some people claim will help you, or will help you see nirvana, or I don't know what else. But there are all sorts of people out there who are willing to give you a little taste of something to give you some relief, basically, is the way it's given, and the way they advertise it, the way they market it, and you'll feel better with this. Well, that can lead down the path to using drugs and experiment. I wonder if I'll feel better if I do this, and I wonder if, and that can get you into trouble. You want something, you want to feel better, you want to, have your life be more under control. So why not, try this? Especially thinking nobody else is doing anything for me. Why not? So this one, this is probably the biggest thing that happens as a result of not being diagnosed early. In my opinion, the earlier you diagnose and start treatment, the better. Ideal is like 7 years old, boom, we know what we got going. By the time he's 8 or 9, we'll have the meds all straightened out. We'll start with the compensatory strategies, and by the time he's ready for middle school, he will have it under pretty good control. Middle school will give him a little bit of a test and a chance to develop some more skills. so that when he goes to high school, it doesn't all go to poo. So that's the idea. With late diagnosis, by definition, it didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? Well, in this day and age, most parents of ADHD kids are told, um, usually by the school system, that they think there's a problem with your child and you should look into it. But there are a lot of people who will blow that off and just not bother doing anything. I've had, oh, he's just a healthy boy. I had stuff like that. I had the exact same thing when I was a kid. Yeah, and should you have been diagnosed? Because heritability index on ADHD is about 85%, which is incredibly high. So if you have an ADHD child, one or the other of you or both of you have got ADHD in your family's histories, or you've got it yourself. And so a lot of people don't want their kid to be identified and diagnosed. Just, I think it's fear mostly, but I'm not, I'm like, well, I wouldn't want anybody to have to go through what you go through with a kid when you don't know what's going on. And it's an active, hyperactive type ADHD. It's not easy to do when you don't know what's going on, when you don't know what should be happening, and you don't know the reasons for what's happening. Because the best of us will tend to, and all else fails, let's try discipline. And discipline and ADHD don't work very well. Punishment is not a good thing for an ADHD kid if you want them to get better. So ADHD, late diagnosed, causes a lot of problems. Usually by the time people are in their late 20s, early 30s, they've had enough. They have had troubles on the job. They've been fired. They've had troubles in relationships. They've broken up. They've been divorced. It's not a pleasant situation for them. And so, that's when they finally come and see somebody like me. And they got a lot of work to do to recover from this. And very few of them say, "Oh, boy, I got my medication. I am so good. I'm so happy. I am so glad I don't need to do anything else." Fine, but you've still got a whole lot of scars on that self-image. All right, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras. This has been Dr. G's ADHD Chat, show designed to make the world safe for ADHD. We need ADHD thinkers. They're the creative ones. They're the ones who think outside the box by definition, because they were born outside the box. But we need them, because if the whole society is nothing but regular folks who don't have any glitches in the way their brains work, they can maintain the situation the way it is, the system the way it is, but they have a hard time when problems come up that are outside the system. So my webpage is terrygingrasphd.com. Come on in and sign up and get on my list and that sort of stuff. I've got things coming up. We'll get to that. But I've got I'm doing probably I'm thinking of membership right now, and we'll give you a shot at signing up for that. And I'm also looking at Patreon. If you've never heard of it, they kind of set up they set up podcasts basically, but so I'm trying to decide if I want to get involved in that. But I'll let you know as it goes along. Okay, and for those people who have been writing responses to me for these many years and I wasn't responding, it's because I wasn't getting them. We had a glitch in our system somehow, so it was going to another URL that I have without me knowing it. So sorry about that. We will do better from now on because we fixed it. Okay, catch you next week.